You. Yeah. All right. So, hi, everybody. So, we have a fun presentation for you this evening. So, as Adela and Giselle and Eric said, we will have a Q&A at the end. So, on the bottom of your screen, if you're not super familiar with Zoom, there's a little three dots that says more. If you click on that, then, or actually, it's right next to it. There's a little box that says Q&A. So, you can put all of your questions in there. And then at the end of the presentation, if your question has not been answered, feel free to ask us, and you can either raise your hand and we'll call on you, and you can speak live and be recorded, which may or may not be the thing you want to do. Or if you just want to remain anonymous or just have it in text form, just feel free to type it. We will get through as many as we can. So without further ado, I will now share screen so that we can get started here. Yeah. So just let me know when you can see. Can y'all see this?
Yes.
Looks like you're sharing.
Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So Angela presents cover letters and resumes. Woo! All righty. So, oh, hold on. It is, there it goes. All right. So who are we? Angela, if you please.
All right. Thank you, Angela. We'll be doing this all presentation, guys. Get used to it. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just buckle up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angela Sanchez. A few things just to know about me off top. I'm a career changer. I did not start out in animation. My career prior to the industry was in higher education and philanthropy. We can have a whole nother discussion about how I made that switch later on, but if you're ever curious, feel free to reach out. I'm also a cartoonist, so occasionally you'll see me doodle, whether it's on Instagram, Blue Sky, or elsewhere. I cut my teeth in kids' literature, so I started out with publishing children's picture books. And then finally, I'm a television writer for animation. So, picture of me over here at Comic-Con 2022. Also repping Latinx in Animation, a sister organization of Viva La Animación. Feel free to check out Lexia as well. They will be having an in-person mixer tomorrow night in North Hollywood at Idle Hour. More on their Instagram too. Anyways, wrapping that up, passing it over to Angela Entzminger. All yours.
Thank you, Angela Sanchez. So, oops, there you go. Okay, so as Angela Sanchez mentioned, so I am also a career changer. I worked in publishing for about 6 years and then worked in search engine optimization and IT inbound tech sales for about 2. After that, I went back to school. I got an animation degree, and I've worked in production. I've done storyboards. I've done character design. I've written and illustrated comics. And now I am a television writer for animation. And this photo is from me at WonderCon last year on a panel for writing for action adventure animation. Take it away.
All right. Diving in right here. So, purpose of a cover letter and resume. So, basically, these documents are a snapshot of who you are as a potential employee, often reviewed by people who have never met you, not even once in person. And that means your cover letter and resume need to showcase applicable skills and experience related to the job that you're applying for. They should be short and concise, a 1-page resume, and 3 to 6 paragraphs for a cover letter. And they need to include all your pertinent contact information. This cannot be screamed out loud enough, especially for board artists. Please include passwords to your portfolio. If there is something that is NDA protected, but you want potential employers and recruiters to be able to see it, they won't be able to just go into your portfolio without your password. This is something that often gets left off of resumes and cover letters. Please be sure to include them. Basically, these two things should have all the most pertinent information in order to know the most about you and the skills you have to offer.
Absolutely. So now we're going to do a little theming here. So hard truth number 1. There we go. Applying online is like throwing your baby in a hole and hoping it crawls out with a career. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Batman the Animated Series or Christopher Nolan Batman, this is Bane. He's a very bad dude. He breaks Batman's back and throws him in a hole in the prison, and then Batman has to claw his way out. So that essentially is kind of what it's like applying online. So we're going to get into that a little bit more here.
All right, so hard truth, sad reality. Sad reality of applying online. By the time the job is online, it may have already been filled. So in other words, usually they're posted online because there is a legal obligation to make sure that the job posting was made publicly available at some point. But chances are recruiters slash people who have posted the job description have also had conversations with potential candidates in advance and may already have an ideal candidate in mind. So on top of that, when you yeet your application on there, you're competing with hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants. I believe it was Heartbreak Studio that recently had a call for a board artist on Instagram, and they reported getting 1,600 applications. Companies often use specialty software to filter out specific keywords. So if your cover letter and resume do not have the keywords, especially those that are mentioned in the job description, then they're not shown to the person reviewing the applications. Also, a lot of shows don't use recruiters to find applicants. Usually it's word of mouth or a referral from someone that they know. Most successful applicants got the job through word of mouth and referrals. So there you go. This is especially true for writers. And Angela will also dig a bit more into that as well.
Absolutely. So, what does this mean for you? It means you need to meet people. So, surprise, this is also a secret networking conversation that we're going to be having. So, buckle up for that.
Where to meet people? Okay, so your options about meeting people are whole and plenty. There's a lot of places and a lot of ways to do it. One, friends of friends. If you know someone who works in the animation industry, and you creep on their LinkedIn, their Instagram, their Facebooks, wherever you may find people that they are closely connected to, then consider asking, "Hey, I noticed you're in touch with so and so. I would love to meet them too, or would you be open to making an introduction?" That way you get a warm handoff to somebody else. Also, fellowships and contests. This one we'll talk more about cold outreach later on, but if you notice that you were in the same contest as someone else and maybe someone placed, or maybe they got quarter or semi-finalist, don't be shy about reaching out and just saying hi or congratulations. Film festivals, going there, there's lots of networking and mixer events. Film and television screenings, mentorship organizations, industry organizations. That includes things like ASIFA Hollywood, Latino Film Institute, La Leaf being the premier festival for Latino Film Institute. Convention school, if you're in a university or college or even extension program like UCLA Extension, those are opportunities to meet people who are also in the industry. Next one is also extension courses through universities, in-person classes at non-traditional schools, online classes taught in real time or with professors that you can speak to. Discord, hey, we're here. And then LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram.
All right. So, one of the things that you also want to do is you want to make things and you want to show them to people. This goes beyond your portfolio, and we'll get into this a little bit later as well. But depending on what it is that you want to do within the industry, that could include making a short, by yourself or with friends or coworkers or classmates, making a feature film. Some people have even done that. So if you want to make a low budget version of that, you can. Writing a script, making a comic book, putting it on Webtoon or Tapas or your own website, writing a novel, illustrating a children's book, creating your own YouTube channel where you talk about your work, where you post different things that you're doing, or, having your own TikTok channel as well, where you're essentially doing the same thing, just in shorter form.
Why do this? Why go through all of this? If they already know you, you probably won't need a cover letter, is why.
Yeah. And that's the big thing, because typically, like we said earlier, cover letters are pretty much when they don't know who you are at all. So a lot of jobs that both Angela and I have gotten have been through word of mouth and networking. So we didn't have to write a cover letter, which was great. And honestly, that typically comes when you've been working in the industry a little bit longer, but it's the truth. So if you can do a lot of the legwork up front, you might not have to just go in cold with just a letter. But we'll get into that though. So now back to resumes and cover letters. Woohoo!
E. All right. Actually, Angela, is this your resume template specifically? Do you want to go through
Yeah,
this one?
sure. So this is a resume template that I'm currently using for writing. So this is your standard resume template. I pulled this up through Pages in iMac. You can also use a Word document, somewhere on the internet. It's just your standard template. It has your name, your profile, your experience, your skills, your awards, your education, your address. So, you have your name on the top, contact info on the top or the bottom. I personally, I don't like to include my telephone number because I don't like getting spam calls. So if you're giving this directly to a person, emailing it to a person, sure, include your telephone number. If you're putting it straight on the internet, you might not want to, but that's up to you. I would include a profile if you're new to the industry or if you're changing jobs. This is especially true, let's say, if all of your experience is in something completely different. You could give a 1 to 2 sentence explanation in your profile as to why you're changing careers. And then you want to include any relevant job experience, bullet point the highlights of that experience, keep it to a couple sentences. Include your skills, especially software. So if you know ShotGrid, which is used for production, Storyboard Pro, Illustrator, Figma, SketchUp, ZBrush, what have you, put that in there. Put your education on the bottom because your experience matters more. And you don't have to list the date that you graduated. I would recommend this, especially if you're, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, they don't have to know what year you graduated. They just need to know that you did graduate. So that's a, way that you can not have to deal with ageism. I would keep it to 1 page, but we do have a 2 page example, which Angela will show in a little bit, and export as a PDF. And let's say if you're on a job portal and it only allows you to put in either a cover letter or a resume or not both, you can take your resume and you can take your cover letter and you can save it as one PDF and then just export it that way. That way they're able to see both of those things if there's not a cover letter space. So you can also get fancy. So this is an older resume. This is back from 2023, actually. So this is the kind of thing you can do. I especially would recommend something like this if you want to be really artsy with it. So, if you're a storyboard artist or a designer or a graphic designer of some type, maybe you want to kind of give it a little bit of flair. So I made this in Photoshop, but you can also use Canva or Clip Studio Paint. And again, my name is up there, my contact info. So I have, Los Angeles, my old email address, my old website. I also have my reps that I had at the time. And also, because I used to do search engine optimization, I will say this forever, buy a domain name. I realize they cost money. I realize they're $10 to $20 a year. It's much better if you have www.yourname.com or www.sketchysoul.com or something rather than www. Let's say, amber12570.wix.50. Whatever. Make it really easy when people Google you to be able to find your website for it to come up on page 1 of Google. It'll save you a lot of time. It'll make it a lot easier for art directors, storyboard directors, executives to just find where you are if they don't have to try to hunt for your domain name. I have a
Also,
fun. Oh yeah.
can I jump in really quick on that one? If
Yes.
you have a phone book name like I do, Angela Sanchez, like there's a million of me out there, right? Um, that is one of the reasons I use my middle initial in all my branding, is that's how you will find me on Instagram, that's how you'll find me on Twixter, that's how you'll find my website, angelasanchez.com. So if you have a middle initial, or to Angela Entzminger's point, if you also have some kind of brand name that you use, for Angela, it's Sketchy Soul. One that I'm starting to develop is Nopali Tunes. So being able to have a title or some kind of handle that is not embarrassing and does not include your birth year, totally go for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the birth year part. We see that a lot. Yeah, don't do that. But she's right.
Jonathan 94. Yay. Okay, way
Yeah,
to go.
yeah. And I had Sketchy Soul because my domain name had gotten bought up by one of those domain name companies for about 8 years. So I had to wait until it got released back in the wild. So yeah, if you have something that's on all of your branding, all your social media tags, that works too. So yeah, so I use columns so that I didn't have to do extra pages. So I have all my experience on the left, and then I have volunteering and different projects and education on the right. Volunteering shows that I have leadership experience. It also shows that I have a life. It also shows how much I love animation and animation people because I want to help animation people. Same with the podcast, they're all animation related. Same with education. I included additional classes beyond college to show, hey, and I know how to do perspective and I know how to do action storyboarding. And then, export as a PDF.
Just professors, just a question.
Yeah.
We're getting a few questions. Do you want to answer them like as you're talking, or
Oh,
we wait to the
we
end?
will answer all questions at the end.
Okay, got it.
Just in
Thank you.
case some of your questions might get answered during the presentation. If they
Okay.
don't, we're happy to
Thank
answer them.
you.
Yeah, yeah. No, thanks for asking. So, Angela,
Yeah,
you can get
for
fancy or
sure.
not get fancy.
Yeah, or don't get fancy at all, because this is like mine is the most cut and dry, boring looking resume you're ever gonna find. Um, and the reason for this is just being able to put something that can be scanned really quickly. I also for this presentation I included a resume that I used early on in my animation industry career. So you'll see it has things like an objective at the top. It does not have any fun graphics, but you can see all the skills and abilities quickly bulleted out. And then because I'm applying for animation writing jobs, slash at the time I was looking at script coordinator and writer's assistant roles, I put all my writing experience or writing related experience up front before my actual hard professional experience. So writing experience for me at the time included things like, oh no, wait, come on. Thank you. Included freelance episodes I'd done for Moonbug Entertainment. These were on YouTube. And then also before that, a couple of freelance episodes for Apple TV Stillwater. And then the rest of it is actually non-animation writing. So that includes things like published articles, podcasts in there, listicles that I wrote for dictionary.com. And also even like a short video that was made about a spoken word story that I shared, and then also my picture book down at the bottom. So there's a lot of other just random stuff. They are all writing related. That's the one criterion. Next page. um and then okay, so the rule for having more than one page for a resume is if you can fill up 2 pages, go ahead. But if you cannot fill up 2 pages, stay with 1 page. Having a lot of stuff on 1 page that's concise into 1 page, great, do it. All right. You do not have to do 2 pages. The second page includes fellowships and honors. So these mostly are like writing contests that I won or writing fellowships that I've been in. And by won, by the way, I just mean like place, like quarterfinalist, great. I'm throwing that thing on there. Um, and it really doesn't also matter what type of like contest it was. The interesting thing that I've noticed is that most people equate even quarterfinalists with a smaller competition with similar regard to whether it's Nichols or Austin Film Festival. Like even the big ones, it still doesn't really matter as if you have a placement, share it. Um, then after this point is when I get to professional experience. So I have now less professional experience working as a writer's assistant, a script coordinator, whatever. The closest thing I had was being a program coordinator for Latinx and animation. So I gave myself 4 bullet points for this. And then I did something completely different. So my career changer part before working in animation. I used to be a program officer for a national grant making foundation that focused in higher ed. I kept this to only 3 bullets. Most people who work in entertainment reading this description really wouldn't know what the heck I did. But I just pointed out like these are my duties. I stewarded a budget of $12 million. Hey, look at me. The goal is to show that I have professional experience, but not to show quote unquote too much in order to make sure that I still read as like, yes, I'm okay taking an early career or starter job in a different industry. And then before that, I just also included my last graduate student position as well. Then we get to volunteer stuff. You can include interesting volunteer activities. VLA, participant as a member, is a great one. You can also put stuff like that after education underneath professional associations. So here's my thing I'm going to say. For your resume, you get one cool, really fun, weird thing. My one cool, really fun, weird thing is being a magician member over the Academy of Magical Arts at the Magic Castle. Magic is my hobby. It brings me joy. It is a weird, interesting thing that's included in my resume. So that way, if someone has actually read this, they will mention it during the interview, or we get to talk about it. Or if they didn't read it, I can also point it out too. when they like skim my resume after like 5 seconds before we had our interview. So having something cool and interesting, and if you have it with a professional association or as volunteer work, great. Feel free to include it. It is an interesting thing that can help flesh you out as a candidate and just make you a little bit more clear in someone's mind's eye, especially if they haven't met you before. Oh yeah, but
Absolutely.
yeah, PDF rule, keep it as a PDF.
Oh yeah, always, always. So hard truth number two, you have to create work to get more work. This is especially true. So now we're going to get into, hey, if you haven't really done a whole lot of animation work before, that's what this part is all about.
So what to include if you're new to the job market or changing careers? All right. So include a profile, briefly explain your goals, like 1 or 2 sentences. So like you saw in the other resume with like objectives and stuff like that, just real quick little byline about what you're looking for. Include experience as applicable to the job or anything that may be relevant, including volunteer positions. Include skills that are applicable to the job. Look, everyone can do Microsoft Word, okay? If you can do Excel to a very specific degree, go ahead and put that. But be able to talk about professional tools that are used in the industry, such as Final Draft if you're a writer, or Storyboard Pro if you are a storyboard artist. Include classes. These don't have to be college courses. Like Angela showed, she's taken a whole number of different classes to continue and advance her education. And then create a separate cover letter if you're applying for both art and production jobs. So in other words, make sure that you are using the language and a cover letter that specifically says, I want this job, and talk about how you're a fit for it and how specific you are about it. Don't use a generic cover letter for two different types of roles.
Absolutely. So here's how to gain experience and skills to add to your resume. So if you're an artist, create a portfolio website, like I said, with a real domain name. Create additional material. So along with your portfolio, you can have a film, a short, a comic, an animatic, whatever the job is that you're going for, along with your portfolio, have an example of like the finished product of that. You can collaborate on projects with others, especially if you did some kind of projects for school. Put that on your site and just make sure that you list out who did what so that everybody gets the proper credit. You can exhibit at conventions and art fairs. I have a lot of friends that the way they got into the industry is they made children's books, they made art books, they did comics, they did t-shirt designs and whatnot, and they exhibited at Comic-Con and Lightbox and CTNX because there's a difference when you're the one behind the table selling merch and talking to people and then going on coffee break and talking to other artists. You're more likely to have professional artists and art directors and storyboard directors come up to you and chat about you about your work. You can also enter contests and fellowship programs. As you saw from Angela's resume, she was a quarterfinalist and a finalist and a semifinalist and got into the WGA, writer staff program and numerous other things, which are awesome. So apply for those. Also apply for grants. There are still some art grants out there, so apply for those. And as we said before, also learn relevant software. So depending on if you want to be a modeler, a texture artist, storyboard artist, character designer, what have you, learn those programs. You can learn them for free, watching YouTube. You can do LinkedIn Learning. You can take a class. However you learn those. Like I said, take classes. Also, some Animation Guild events and seminars are open to non-members. So if you follow the Animation Guild online, and if they ever have some kind of portfolio review or something that you can join or learn from, or a Zoom talk you can go to, take advantage of those. And then also, I know a lot of people that prior to getting into animation, they were full-time or part-time art teachers at summer camps or organizations or schools. That's a great thing to put on your resume because you show that A, you know how to draw or paint or design, and B, you know how to take direction and you know how to give direction to others. So studios love that. So mention that.
And then if you're a writer, write scripts. Like I'm not of the school of like writers got to write every day, but I will agree that writers got to write. So how do you show up your writing? Have a script, have a couple of different samples. Pick a genre or an age group and focus on a specific type of show for specs and originals. So if you want to be staffed on a superhero show, maybe have a superhero script and not one that is a high school drama, or unless you have a superhero high school drama show in mind. Um, and learn Final Draft. So alternate to save money, you can also use Highland 2, which exports Final Draft docs. Enter into fellowships and contests, create a short or a feature, and enter film festivals. I think someone in the chat might have asked if personal animation projects has experience. Yes, they do. But make sure it gets out there and that someone sees it, even if it's just on your own personal portfolio site. Go to formal and informal mixers and events. We mentioned that earlier. Follow the WGA Writers Guild Foundation and the Animation Guild to their non-member, and go to their non-member events as well. Create and or join a writers group, take screenwriting classes, find reps on IMDb Pro who rep writers similar to you, and cold email them. It's okay to one, upgrade to an IMDb Pro account, and then search for reps, see who they represent, and if that's similar to a sample that you have available, not like, oh, I gotta finish it, let me get it to you when I'm done. No, have a clean, polished sample ready to go. Let's scream that loudly here. And when you reach out to a rep, say, hey, I noticed you represent so-and-so. They're also an action adventure writer like I am. If do not attach your script. If you're open to receiving samples, if you are open to reviewing my work, I would love to send you a sample. Sincerely, your name. Attaching a script to a cold email is like sending an unsolicited dick pic, okay? So do not do that. Do not send unsolicited nudies via your script, okay? Just be able to ask someone if they want to see it, and when they respond with a yes, then you send it. All right. Get a job that can lead to becoming a writer. So a PA, a writer's PA, a writer's assistant, a script coordinator. Usually by the time you get to writer's assistant, and most definitely usually by the time you get to script coordinator, there is oftentimes an opportunity to write at least one episode of a season of that show or share joint writing credit. If you are with a healthy room, they typically try and provide that stepping stone for you. And then create a portfolio website. Include log lines, the first 5 to 10 pages of your script, or include a note that scripts are available upon request. All right, let's continue.
So
yes, consent.
For production, so for all of our folks who you want to be production assistants, production coordinators, associate producers, it's a little bit different because unfortunately, it's not like you can show a portfolio of those types of things. But fortunately, there's a lot of different things you can do to gain experience to put on your resume and in your cover letters for that. So one of them is being an office temp or having a full-time office job, because a lot of those things overlap. The way that I became a production assistant was I was an office temp for Robert Half International for about a year. And I also had a lot of office experience. And then I was able to parlay that into getting a production assistant job. And then I got a couple of those that were freelance before then becoming a full-time PA. So that can be a path for you as well. So again, production assistant on set or in office, and on set being, a lot of people make the jump from live action to animation and vice versa as PAs. So you can too. You can make a short and you can hire yourself as a PA. So people ask, have you ever had PA experience? You can say, yes, I worked on a short. Here it is. And here's my name in the credits. You can get an agency job. So if you're in Los Angeles, a lot of the agencies like CAA, WME, whatnot, they're looking for people. You can work in the mailroom. You can be someone's assistant. These jobs are not always easy to get, but they are a good stepping stone. I've met plenty of people who work in animation that started off as assistants. I mean, assistant job to a producer, mailroom clerk. Volunteering at film festivals is a good idea. You can put that on your resume, meet a lot of different people that way. As we've mentioned before, learn Microsoft Word, learn Excel, learn ShotGrid, learn how to use Google Docs. Develop a solid phone manner and learn to write professional emails. One of the things about production is production people talk to people a lot more often than animation people and even writers do a lot of the time. So you want to be able to grow that muscle and develop that skill of being able to talk to people on the phone and being able to write very courteous professional emails to folks. Also, highlight your organizational skills and ability to work on multiple projects at once. On animated shows, as a PA, you are helping the PCs and the rest of the department manage multiple episodes in different stages of production. So being an organizational wizard helps a lot. And if you work in live action and want to make the jump to animation, honestly, if you're in LA, own a car. A lot of the first PA jobs I ever got, the only requirement was, do you own a car? And are you nice and you won't scare the talent that you're driving around town? So if you own a car or you have easy access to one, that can literally help you get a job. So there's something to keep in mind.
Also, on a side note, I know we are recommending a lot of personal expenses throughout some of these slides, whether it's buying the domain of your own website, getting an IMDb Pro account, getting Final Draft, Storyboard Pro, blah, blah, blah. All these things add up. I understand that. I am not a tax professional or a tax expert. However, consult with a professional or a tax expert before taking this advice. Consider making sure that you're keeping track of all your receipts, all your expenses, and then when tax season comes around and you got to file, you can write off a lot of this because it counts towards your own expenses of professional development and the business of you. So, again, consult with a tax expert and professional. But at the very least, right now, if you are taking on any of these expenses, keep all your receipts and then put them into a nice little spreadsheet and then send them off to your tax pro by the time that you get ready to file, because you probably can get these written off.
Yes, and I will second that because I have done that very thing. So again, repeating what Angela said, I guess hashtag not tax advice, but I can say that it does work. Just make sure you talk to a tax professional. And like she said, keep all your receipts. So tell us about production jobs outside of animation, Angela.
Yeah, where to find productions jobs outside of animation. Staffmeup.com. Woo, great place to start. And then also New Hollywood Association, the Anonymous Production Assistant Substack, UTA Jobs List, the Tracking Board, Apple One, Robert Half International, entertainmentcareers.net. That sounds so familiar, actually. Mandy.com, Hollylist. Oh, and one more for this group in particular. I am blanking on the full name of it, but if you go on Instagram and you look up Chicano Hollywood, they do have a website that specifically is dedicated to, on the live action side, helping young professionals get their experience on set. So visit Chicano Hollywood on one of their social media websites or take it to their main website. And they do have a platform that is dedicated to Latinx talent.
Yeah, and I'll shout out Robert Half International and staffmeup.com because those are the two sites that I used to get jobs for the first year and a half that I was in Los Angeles. So they helped a lot, got a lot of PA experience. So any one of these might be able to help you out with that. So then, after you've done the aforementioned steps, you are ready for cover letters. Yeah. So now we're getting to cover letters.
Cover letter format. Okay, so dear name or department, and then introduce yourself and state what job and requisition number you're applying for. Just get all the info up top. Don't ask, how are you doing? Hi, just go ahead and put out there, I'm applying for this job. I'm very interested because of this XYZ connection. Just put it right there. State what you want to work, why you want to work for that particular show or studio. Be specific, not just I love cartoons. Make sure you are very intentional. We all love cartoons. Tell them why you love their specific cartoons. This also demonstrates that you know the brand of a studio. So, a studio like a Nickelodeon or even a Cartoon Network is very much geared toward like, hey, we want to tell the story about the kid who gets in trouble, the kid who is imperfect, a little bit silly and kind of weird. Let's do those stories. Disney is a little bit more on the side of we want to make sure that we're telling stories that engage imagination and show idealized characters that we can aspire to. being able to show that you know the brand of an animation studio and especially what that network puts out shows that you have taken the time to watch at least multiple series that they put out there and not just being strictly a fan of XYZ show. Um, Moving on beyond that, use the requirements of the job listing to spell out your applicable skills and experience, and then state how you would specifically benefit the team. What are you bringing to the table? A way to think about applying for a job is kind of like going on a date with a very vain person. So you want to make sure that you are flattering them, you know everything about them, and yes, you are going to bring so much to the table to help them because that is the goal of a job. You want to make sure that you are adding value to whichever company network that you are working for. And then tell them how they can contact you. Be very clear at the end with your little closure statement. Say, I may be reached at this phone number or via email at this address. Thank them for their time. Sincerely, your name. And then use the signature stamp in Acrobat. This is a free version. Or, if you want to be real cheap like me and you say, screw you, Adobe, you can also literally handwrite your own signature, scan it on your computer, make it into a little image, copy and paste onto the Word doc, whatever floats your boat. And then export as a PDF because unfortunately you do kind of have to work with Adobe sometimes, but there are workarounds for that.
All right. So also the thing you want to do is you want to be a detective because as we stated earlier, applying online, it's like throwing your precious, precious baby into a hole. We don't want any babies in holes. So here's a way to try to help your cover letters and also your resumes actually get to a human being. So first off, we've all seen those listings on studio websites where it says, we're hiring for a show. And they don't say what that show is, so you have no idea. So this is your opportunity to be a detective. So ask around to see if you can find out what the show is. So anyone you know from school, any of your teachers, any of the people that we showed on that list earlier, friends of friends, Discord, classes, whatnot, see if you can actually find out what that is. And then also see if you can find a direct contact or the department email. So along with applying online, then you could also potentially talk to a human person and you could also personalize the letter. And pro tip, not all the time, but it's usually just first name dot last name at company name. It's like 90% of company emails. But here's the thing, when you apply online and then if you email them directly, be courteous. Remember that these folks owe you nothing. You are entitled to nothing. So don't come in hot, okay? You want to come in very courteous, very professional. Keep the email short because it's not your cover letter. So something along the lines of, Dear Mary Sue at Warner Brothers Animation Recruiting. Hello, my name is fill in the blank. I recently applied for X, Y, and Z job. I feel like I would be a great contributor to the team and would like to use my skills to help out on X, Y, and Z show. I have applied online. If my skills are suitable for what you are looking for, I would love to talk with you further. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, whoever you are. That's it. That's like literally it. Just say who you are, what you're applying for, why, thank them for their time. Get out of it, okay? Because this email isn't your cover letter and it's not your resume. It's just letting them know, hey, I am a human who exists. That's all you have to do. If you hear back from a human, you can follow up with them, and you can thank them for your time. If you never hear back from them, which unfortunately happens a lot, even if you get an interview, even if you get to talk to a person, they might ghost you. We know that sucks. We've all been ghosted. It stinks. Don't be the person ghosting people when you get into the industry. However, if you don't hear from them, don't yell at them. Don't blast them on social media. Don't scream at them if you see them in person. I have talked to many recruiters who've gotten very angry emails from students and professionals. And what that says to them is this person is not someone we want to work with because they're screaming at me. And now I'm afraid for my person and I'm afraid for the team if they were to be on that team. So even if they don't act right, don't you go off and be crazy, okay? If you meet them at an event, so say like you emailed them and never heard back, or maybe you emailed them and you did hear back and you meet them at something, feel free to reintroduce yourself, feel free to say hi. And, ask them if they would like to go to coffee. Ask them if they would like to have a Zoom chat. Rapport is a plus. If they say no, that's fine. Thank them for their time. If they say yes, great. Plan an event. If you can, I realize, a lot of us are students here. I know the economy's kind of bad. If you can offer to pay for their coffee, pay for their coffee. They don't have to accept, but it's, a nice gesture. If they offer to pay for your coffee, graciously accept. And then, have a nice 15, 30-minute conversation tops. If you guys hit it off really well, great, you can talk longer. But, respect their time. After 30 minutes, if it's kind of feeling like, okay, we've gotten everything we need to get out of this conversation. It was very lovely to meet you. I'm now going to graciously exit. That's fine. And last part here, if you happen to know the showrunner, if you happen to know the executive producer of the show, if you happen to know the director of the show, the art director or whatnot, or if you happen to know who that is, you can go to their website. And this ties into like finding out who the people actually are. You can, before you use that little contact me portal, see if on their resume, if they have an email, and then email them. Again, be very courteous, be very polite. You can tell them, hey, I saw your email on your site and wanted to reach out to see if I might be a good fit for your show. So you can tell them how you found them. Don't call them because that's kind of creepy. Like, don't text them, but just send them an email, okay? And last part here, if you have a mutual contact who honestly referred you to them, mention this in the email or mention this in person. And when we say honestly referred, we don't mean your friend met them once at a party, but doesn't actually know them, or your friend that they're like your friend's neighbor, but they never talk to them. Don't then go over and be like, oh, my friend said I should talk to you, because that's a lie. Okay. So don't lie. It makes you look terrible. And then your friend won't want to talk to you anymore. So if they actually referred you, mention this. If they didn't refer you, leave that alone.
All right. Additional tips as we wind this down. So download the job description and save it as a PDF. Or, even if you just gotta just straight up like screenshot it, copy and paste into a Word doc, as long as you can read it, like just grab that thing in some way, shape, or form and save it to your computer, because it might get taken down. And if you do get an interview, you want to be able to go back and refer to that job description to be able to reuse language that you saw in it during your interview or even during your cover letter. Apply for the job as soon as you see it. Don't wait 2 weeks. It will disappear and it will vanish. Don't wait to create an all new portfolio. It's already been shown to everyone at the studio. Just be ready. Just go for it. And then be up to speed on the industry. Read the dailies, The Hollywood Reporter, Collider, Screen Rant, Variety, Deadline, The Wrap, Hit Screen if you want to be in specifically children's media. You want to see what's coming down the pipe. Email the directors / recruiters, if these jobs relate to what they're doing. Get ahead of the curve. Just know what's going on. And then finally, again, don't lie. Don't lie. You're gonna reach out to somebody and you don't have a direct referral to them, don't make that up. If you don't have the skill set, like if you're not like close to the skill set, but like if you're miles beyond being able to reach that skill set, don't lie and say that you're qualified. Just be honest. That's policy.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. So then hard truth number 3. All right. So here's the thing that upsets people. It's not great, but it's often true. Okay. You're more likely to have success if in the US. It's different from other countries, but if you're in the US, you're more likely to get a job if you live in a television or film market. That's Los Angeles, it's New York, it's Atlanta, it's places that do a lot of filmmaking, do a lot of production, do a lot of writing. The reason for this is you're competing with thousands of people who already live here, who are already making connections, who are going to the mixers, who are going to coffee, who are talking to people, who are going to in-person events. And these are people who can easily come into the office as soon as they're hired or the following week. True story, when I got hired for my first full-time job in animation, I was already living in Los Angeles. I got an email on a Tuesday. I went in to interview on a Wednesday. I got hired on a Friday. It's that fast. So it really helps if you're here, but we'll get into that a little bit more. And yes, this is avocado toast, the most LA breakfast that has ever breakfast. It's also delicious.
So how to get remote work. If you're already an industry professional, it's probably how you're going to get to work remotely because you'll have already built up that cachet. Your work is stellar and professionals already know you. Again, built up upon social capital and goodwill. You can easily fly/drive in for meetings and in-office work. Your EP does not care. Therefore, folks on the team can do whatever they want. Totally okay. Don't need to see you in the office. Whatever. Or, last option, studio's remote. Studio is a floating box in the cloud, and everybody just works remotely anyways.
And then here's things with, pros of in office. So here's the thing. When you're in the office, and both Angela and I have worked both remote and in office, and there's pros and cons of both. But for the pros for in office, here's the thing. The jobs typically are seasonal, meaning, they last for like 6 months to a year to 2 years. And when you're in office, not only are you meeting people on your show, but you'll have an opportunity to meet people on other shows, and you'll also have an opportunity to meet people in other departments. You can meet the recruiters in person, you can meet executives in person. And so when it's time for you to roll off your show, you might already know people you can talk to, and you'll be the first person to know when something new is happening. You also have access to in-office resources, including professional development, like free classes. For example, Nickelodeon and DreamWorks offered a lot of free classes, so does Warner Brothers. A bunch of studios offer free things. So if you want to learn how to storyboard, you want to learn how to character design, they offer that for you, taught by professionals. You also have access to equipment such as printers and software and Cintiqs and errand chairs. So you don't have to worry about buying that for yourself. You can just use the in-office stuff. Most of the studios are close to each other. In LA, the majority of them are in Burbank. Like Illumination is in Santa Monica, Sony's in Culver City, 6 Point Harness, I think is kind of near like North Hollywood, Glendale, Bento Box is in North Hollywood, but they're all pretty close. So if you want to meet people at other studios, it's pretty easy to get around. You can also participate in the larger animation community. We've mentioned TAG, we mentioned WGA. Most of their events are in LA, so you can actually go to those events. And sometimes there's free food, sometimes there's meetings, and you can descend like a vulture and get a lot of free lunches and snacks.
All right, so these are some of the questions that we've received through those of you submitted through the form in advance. So thank you. All right, let's go through a few of these, and then we'll address those that have been coming in through the Q&A as well live. Okay, question 1. Do I need to explain all my previous non-TV/film work? Okay, the answer is no, but if it makes for a compelling sentence or two in your cover letter, go for it. So for me personally, I used to work in the philanthropic sector. I joke that I used to be a pretend millionaire. But it can be interesting if I keep it concise and say I used to be a nonprofit version of a development executive. That helps people in entertainment get a quick snapshot of exactly what I used to do. I would steward grant money for different nonprofit organizations. I would read their pitches. I would take them to proposal, and then I would distill that proposal into a briefing and pitch it to our board. Would hopefully greenlight it for a grant. If I can explain my old career that concisely, then it helps paint a picture of relevant experience that also crosses over into the entertainment industry. Angela, do you want to take the next question?
Sure thing. So, question, do studios even read my cover letters? Okay, so the answer to this is sometimes, but when they do read them, they read them very quickly. So I've talked to recruiters and internship coordinators about this. So they're spending 30 to 60 seconds looking over your resume and looking over your cover letter. I know that is a very brief amount of time. It's because they get so many. Angela mentioned earlier for one of the jobs that she saw, they got 1,600 applications. So this is the reason why we're telling you to keep everything short and concise and to the point. 3 to 6 paragraphs max for cover letters, and also bold important sentences in your cover letter. If there's something that you really want to make sure that they know that is essential for the job, put it in bold, make it so that their eye immediately goes to that.
And then, do I need all the qualifications listed? Nope, you don't. If you have half, go for it. That means you have enough. If you are severely underqualified, yeah, obviously. But if you have at least half of those qualifications, you have a fighting chance, especially if you have a warm referral or a connection, some kind of human connection to that job. Use the same phrases also that appear in the job posting in your resume and in your cover letter. Being able to have that will help you, will make sure that the algorithm sifts you out. No one cares if you don't have 5 years of storyboard experience if your boards are awesome. So good quality boards will compensate for experience. It's also more of a wish list than a set in stone requirements as well.
So then another question, if I'm an artist, but I'm applying for a production job, should I tell them that I want to work as an artist? The answer is not unless they ask. I personally get this question a lot, and this is something that I ran into when I was a student and cost me interviews and possibly potential jobs. Because here's the thing, if you're applying for an internship, it's typically fine because they know that you're excited about the animation industry, that you're willing to work in whatever department, you just are very hungry and want to know how that works. So if you're applying for an internship, unless it's a very specific type of internship, they usually don't care. Case in point, I used to review the internship cover letters and resumes for Loud House for our interns. We didn't care if they wanted to be production or animation. We were happy to see them. They were happy to see us. But if you're applying for a full-time PA job, you don't want to tell them that your goal is to quit, because a lot of times what people will see, even if this is not what you're trying to convey, is I am an artist, but I'm applying for a PA job, which means as soon as I get an art job, I'm going to leave y'all in the dust. No one wants to hear that. They want to know that they can at least rely on you for a year, because production is hard and they need someone who can help out the artists, who can help out the production team, who they don't have to retrain every couple of months. So if you're applying for a PA job, do your best to at least stick it out for a year and show them that you're genuinely interested in being a PA and contributing to the team and learning. And then after you've been there for a year, you know, if someone on your team or if someone at the studio asks, or if you feel comfortable enough with your team to say, hey, I see that we're going to need a new character designer in 2 months or a revisionist. I would love to apply for that. I'd love to be considered. Then ask them, but you know, stick with production first. And also, as a general rule, you know, don't include art jobs on a production resume. I say general because I do that now, but it's a little different for me because I've been in animation for a decade. But when you're first starting out, unless you know for a fact that the show you're working on is fine with that, or the studio is fine with that, or the executive producer is fine with that, it's better to keep it separate, because some shows are open to production people moving over and some are not. And that's honestly a thing that you're just going to have to find out directly from them or someone who's working on that show.
All right, let's see these. If I'm a student, do I include student projects? Yes, especially if you were in a leadership position or you create your own project.
All right, and the question, do my resumes, cover letters need to be super fancy? And the answer is no. They just need to be legible. If you want to be super fancy, if you like to be the fanciest, that's great. You know, nobody's going to fault you for that, but you don't have to do that. Even if you're an artist, you don't have to make it super colorful or whatnot, right? Like Angela said earlier, you know, if you have 2 full pages, use that. Otherwise, keep it 1 page. And then also spell check, especially if you want to be a writer, especially if you want to work in production. Because for artists, you know, it's not great, but we can kind of get away with not being able to spell. For production, no, they want to make sure that you know how to spell. So have a friend look over it or somebody.
Then finally, do I need a degree to work in animation? No, you don't. I don't have a screenwriting degree. Said that live. But no, you can learn and be good, and once you have that professional experience, consummate experience also compensates for like the lack of a formal degree as well. But you do have to show professional level delivery of work. So, whatever classes you've taken and applicable job experience, go ahead and list that out. If you didn't finish your degree, highlight the classes that pertain to the job. So if you've taken storyboarding, I've taken at least a couple storyboarding classes myself just to be able to fill out my own background and knowledge of what it is to work in the pipelines of this industry, as well as be able to inform my ability to write visually. If you also have an experience in things like character animation, etc., you don't need to explain why you didn't graduate. Lots of folks quit school, or in some cases, even got hired out of school. So they were good enough and just didn't get a chance to finish their degree, but they started working in the industry, and that was the goal. It's also okay if you never went to a traditional college as well. These are all fine experiences. Many pathways lead to the same end result of professional quality work.
Absolutely. And so now,
Can I
oh,
follow
yeah,
up on one of the questions there?
yeah.
For if I'm a student, do I include student projects?
Yes.
I know the answer is yes, but how, like, where would it go in like education or experience? Like, how would that actually be listed?
Put it underneath relevant experience. Education should
Mhm.
be listing out your degrees or classes or things that you have used to fill out your general education. But because a project is a material thing, put it underneath relevant experience.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Agreed. And then final hard truth of the night. Ah, this is the part that kind of makes people sad, but steel yourselves here because it can be good for you. All right. So working in the industry, unfortunately, it's a circle. A lot of times we think in like, oh, the linear progression is this. That's not how it works for entertainment. It's like this, and it's not even a smooth circle. It's this circle over here with all the squiggly lines, like Angela said earlier, there's no one path. There are some paths that are more common, but I've met people that designed furniture or who were botanists or engineers or who were English majors. I did search engine optimization. Like people do a lot of different things. Okay. And the other thing is there's a misconception that you break in and then that's it, and that's honestly not how it works. You might break in once, but the likelihood that you break in once and then stay in forever typically doesn't happen, unless you're on a show that no one could have predicted that would last for super long. We're talking the Simpsons, Loud House, Family Guy, Rick and Morty. Like, no one knew that those shows were going to last as long as they did. Everybody hopes their show is going to last a very long time. Everyone does their best, but you don't always know if you're going to be on that type of show. So, folks on those shows, if they choose to stay, they've had longevity for decades, but most of us are changing up shows between every 6 months to 2 years. And so because of that, that's the reason why at the top of this, we really emphasize the importance of meeting people and making personal projects and updating your skills, because your goal is to stay employable, especially during times right now when not just animation, but like the entertainment industry and the tech industry and the publishing industry and a bunch of video game industry and a bunch of other industries are having a hard time. Now is the time to talk to people and sharpen your skills so that hopefully when things improve, you'll be ready for that. And also, if you're not currently working in the industry, it could also be a good idea just to develop skills and other things that you like. That way, if there isn't a lot of work and entertainment, you can still work. You can still earn money, you can still pay your rent or mortgage, you can still feed yourself and your family, you can still have something to do, even when right now, we're kind of going through this dip. And that's it. So now we're ready for Q&A. So thank you everyone for coming to our presentation. And thank you again, Adela and the wonderful team at Viva La Animación. For anyone who's new, who this is the first time you've ever heard of the organization, they're great. They have Discord, they have a YouTube channel, they do all sorts of events, they have study halls. There's a lot of really cool things. So make sure to check out the website, join the Discord. We're always happy to see you. And now we will answer your questions.
God, thank you both, by the way. That was such a cute shout out at the end. Thank you for putting up our card. We'll have a website soon, I'm thinking in March. So that'll be
Awesome.
exciting. But yeah, Eric, we'll get into Q&As. Eric, you want to do the first question?
Yeah. Also, thank you both Angelas. That was awesome presentation. Very organized, very resourceful and informative. So, first question says, if I'm coming in from having worked an office job, how should it look design wise? Would I have a field titled other work experience?
Yeah, so I'll answer that because that was my experience. So what you could do, so there's a couple of different ways you could do it. The way that I did it was anything that I thought might relate to production work, I put under relevant experience. And then anything that I thought didn't relate to that, but that showed that I knew how to work consistently or had some kind of leadership skills or that I hadn't just not worked for, like a 7-year gap or whatnot. I listed that as other experience just so they could see that, hey, I know how to keep a job, work with others, do solid work. So that would be my recommendation. Angela, would you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just thinking like for my resume, I put writing experience and none of those were full-time jobs. Mind you, it was like publication here, something over here, whatever, contest there. Um, and I think just putting that up top was helpful to show the area of focus I wanted to be in. And then just professional experience or work experience was just everything else. And ideally, or in most cases, what you want is to have at least something related to film, television, animation as your first one. And then either your coinciding, like maybe full-time job or other stuff that you're doing coming after that one. And any other like previous other types of professional experience. So if you had an office job, but you've been working part-time or volunteering for a stipend with an organization like let's say NALEAP or the National Hispanic Media Coalition, you can put that up top and then your last office job or whatever it is, non-industry job underneath it as well. So writing slash let's say generally like animation slash art experience or relevant experience is its own category up top. And then other professional experience can be the next section.
Thank you. So this will be a Google form question. It says, hi there, I'm a non-traditional student that has taken animation classes, but I never finished my degree. My work experiences are on the corporate clerical production side. I wanted to know how to go about showing that on my resume that I'm dedicated to transitioning over into animation production.
Oh, real quick, list the name of the class and the instructor and the institution you were at. For me, for instance, it would be Glendale Community College, 2017 to 2019. Didn't finish my certificate in animation, but I took storyboarding classes underneath Alan Jacobson. And I would list both of his classes then that I took, like storyboarding 1, storyboarding 2. Angela, you've also had experience with like various types of classes and other stuff too.
Oh yeah, so absolutely. So like Angela said, list all the relevant courses. And then again, because you did clerical work, that is what you're doing for animation production. It's clerical work. You're making spreadsheets, you're setting up meetings, you're taking notes, you're handing out assignments. So what you could do is you could have a profile section up top saying, my interest is in working in animation production and utilizing my clerical skills to aid that. And so then you just list out the companies you worked for. And then what I would recommend too is there's a couple of YouTube videos on Nickelodeon Animation's channel that specifically highlights what production does. And there's some for DreamWorks as well. And also I would look at the job listings and whatever they say that is pertinent to what you've already done, make sure to list it that same way on your resume and on your cover letters, because then people will be able to see, the one for one and how those two relate. And so it'll demystify it for the people that are reading this material.
Thank you. Someone else asked, is it okay if our portfolio website address doesn't include our name, but is our special unique uh, monitor? I think that's what they
Moniker,
meant.
yeah.
That isn't used very often.
Yeah, totally. As long
Yeah.
as people can find it, as long as it's consistent also with your social media.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did that. I did that for 8 years because I mentioned this earlier. a company bought my domain name and it was going to cost $2,000 for me to buy it back from them. And I went, that's silly. And so I just made something up. So I made something up and I just made sure that all of my social media handles were the same. And I put that on business cards. But I also just made sure that on the website itself, I put something along the lines of it was like, Sketchy Soul, the art of Angela Entzminger, so that people knew who the real person was behind it too. So as long as on your promotional materials, it's just very clear, this is my real name and this is my moniker, that's totally fine. People do, and honestly, people do that all the time. So you're in good company with that.
Adela, did you have another Google Docs question or?
Oh, I think there's just one more from everyone was saying thank you and all that stuff on the Google form.
Thanks, you guys.
And all these nice things. Excited to learn from such people of passion, someone said. And I'm so excited to learn from you both. And thank you for your time. I think the last question on the Google form, at least, was I took animation classes, but I don't have a degree in animation. How do I show on my resume that I have the ability to perform production duties within an animation studio?
Yeah, so I think it's what we mentioned is, classes are experience. So list out the courses that you took. Because again, you don't need the piece of paper. And now I do want to say it can help. We don't want to make it sound like you don't need college. College stinks. That's not what we're saying, But what we are saying is, as long as you can demonstrate that you know what you're doing or that you're able to learn what you're doing and you have enough for them to hire you, that's what matters. So any relevant animation experience, list that out. But the thing with production is they're not expecting you to be an animator. They're not expecting you to be a storyboard artist. They're not expecting you to be a writer. What they ideally would like is that you at least have a cursory understanding of how the animation pipeline works. And that honestly is more on the cover letter side of letting them know, I've taken animation classes to further, gain more knowledge so that I know how the animation production pipeline works, so that I can be a great PA. So that's where you want to really highlight why that matters. And then on the resume itself, you want to talk more about your organizational skills, your ability to use Word docs, Google Docs, handout assignments, making sure that things are turned in on time. That's where you want to focus more on the hard and soft skills of, office work and production.
Yeah, if you can, that's what I was gonna, exactly what Angela said. If you can show that on your resume that you have people management skills. And this is where volunteering is actually very helpful because oftentimes organizations such as a VLA need lots of support. And there's a lot of things that if you wanted to grow this organization, offer more programs, etc., like it's going to need a lot of leadership and it's going to need folks who can also coordinate moving parts and folks who can be responsible for other volunteers or just also members engagement. So on that note, if you can put in your resume position that you held with any organization, whether it's VLA that's smaller and scrappier or a bigger organization like National Hispanic Media Coalition or LFI, or something that is also just like maybe even outside of the animation industry. Ideally, you should be doing something in the entertainment industry. But if it's outside of that, but then show how you manage other people, how you're able to keep folks organized, how you're able to support leadership. Those are qualities of someone who works in production. Can you stay organized? Can you keep the trains moving on time? Can you be reliable? So I would say that there's a number of ways to help bridge the experience. Also, I think I saw something that came up about including experience from like totally different industries and stuff like that. If that is the only work experience you have, it's okay to list it. Don't dedicate a whole bunch of bullets to it, maybe 2 to 3. If it is something that maybe that might be a survival job and it's only for a short amount of time and maybe you don't feel comfortable putting that on your resume, then it's also okay to omit it and also use your relevant experience from other areas of your life, whether that's participating in a professional association or volunteering with another type of industry focused association. So if maybe at this time you're working a survival job that has nothing to do with animation. Maybe it's retail, maybe it's food service, maybe it's a type of customer service job that you haven't been at there long enough to really feel you need to put it on your resume at this time. It's also okay to leave it out. Your resume should be showcasing whatever it is that you want people to see. If you have a few years of experience in the healthcare industry, you can list as much or as little of that as you want, but make sure it's showcasing the skill set that you want to be able to share or communicate with a potential employer.
Absolutely. And I want to add one more thing to that because that was great. You don't have to be a student to be a part of organizations. Sometimes people think, oh, the only way to be in an organization is if I'm a student. And that is not the case. VLA, Women in Animation, Black and Animated, Asians in Animation, Open Animation. There's so many organizations that you can join that you don't have to be a student. You don't have to be working in the animation industry yet. All you have to be is be a willing participant, and you can contact the people that run those organizations and say, I would love to help. Where do you need help? And they would love to have you help them, because these are all volunteer positions. So that's another really great way not only to get to know people and make friends and learn more about animation, but also be able to, give back your time. And then in turn, you can put that on your resume as experience of, as a volunteer, I helped with social media or I helped with events or what have you. So, definitely keep that in mind. And, let's say if you live in a place that's outside of a media hub and you want to get something together and there's nothing there, you can always form your own organization. You can always get a group of people together and have, your own version in wherever you live. So, keep that in mind too.
And I will say that for Viva La Animación, when we do get new volunteers, I always encourage them, and I've been giving them guides on how to add this to their LinkedIn pages, and I make little buttons and things like that, because oftentimes a lot of our volunteers are actually like college students and young Latin people from across the country and even in other countries. And it's really inspiring to see, but this is usually like their first sort of any sort of volunteer role. And not only that, but I've seen like Nikki, for example, like she just came in totally new and she's been doing like it's been so impressive to see her and others just kind of grow over the months that I've known them. And so I think it's definitely like whether it's with us or other organizations, you can definitely use that as a learning experience and get even more and more. And she's like specializing social media. Now she's like making all these reels. She's like getting us lots of new things. And it's just been really good to see that kind of thing. So you can start out with nothing and just end up becoming more professionalized as you go on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh, Nikki.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And
Yeah.
just also as a way to keep in touch, you can reach out to me on Blue Sky or Instagram. I'm usually on one of those two sites most often.
Yeah. And
And
I'm
sometimes I'll post unsolicited writing advice.
yeah. And I'm in VLA. I'm there pretty much every day. So if you guys are just come to the VLA Discord, we are there. It's a great place. Everybody's really cool. Feel free to ask questions. And again, they have study groups, they have a storyboard group now, they have a writing group, they have art groups, they have game nights, they have so many things. They have like in-person events in New York and LA all the time. So yeah, feel free to reach out. We like answering questions. We're happy to help.
Oh, I
Yeah, come to
think,
storyboard nights this Sunday.
sorry. Can someone drop the Discord
I'm
link
hosting that.
for VLA?
Oh, Adela, did you want to grab the Discord link? I have
Yeah,
a
I'll do
quick
that. And you can
question.
ask the
Someone
next
in the
questions.
Yeah, someone in the chat was asking, I know this is being recorded and everything, so we have the YouTube video,
Mhm.
but are you guys also going open to like sharing like a document like for the slides?
Oh yeah, I'm fine
It's
with
totally
that.
fine if
Angela,
you
are
guys,
you cool with that?
I'm good with that.
Yeah. So we'll put it in the Discord. So, it's a PDF, so you guys can download it and you can just that way you don't have to like screenshot everything or like copy everything. So that's fine.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Are we still going with the Q&A or are we wrapping it?
Did anybody else have any other questions?
We have quite a few
Yes.
questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm good, Angela.
Yeah.
If you're good, I'm good.
Okay, so this person asked about how long do you suggest each bullet point description for job responsibilities on a resume be? Are there any certain keywords we should be using in the bullet point descriptions as well? I think you guys also kind of did answer this one.
Yeah,
Yeah, whatever's in the
those.
job description, man,
Mhm.
like grab from there, and then also make sure the verb that starts off the bullet point is one that actually shows action. So rather than just say, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to use the wrong version of it, like put together packages, say something more like organized, meeting notes and oversaw follow-up or something like that. But like you can look up like best verbs to use on resume, and it'll show you, and pick the ones, be honest, again, don't lie, but pick the verbs that most accurately represent the duties and responsibilities that you did and what you carried out. And then also for previous jobs that you held but aren't currently holding, use past tense. For current jobs, use present tense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for bullet points, like 2 to 4 tops, and just keep it short. So 1 to 2 sentences max for each bullet point, especially if it's not super related, but sort of related. If it's absolutely related to animation, you can make it a little bit longer. But if it's not, but you just want to have enough just to be able to basically explain what it is, like a sentence is fine.
Okay, I can do the next one. Howdy, I've got experience as a coordinator in my day job, but want to eventually work as an artist in animation. Is it frowned upon to apply for assistant or coordinator jobs, even if you may later down the line pivot to the creative side of production? You kind of answered that, but if you want to
Yeah.
elaborate.
So it's not, here's the thing. It's just sometimes it can be hard to switch. And that's sometimes dependent on things that have nothing to do with you. It can be hard depending on if you're on a show that they don't want production to switch to art. It can be hard. It can be hard if they're fine with that, but there aren't any art jobs. There aren't any art jobs on that show or on any of the other shows at that studio. It can be kind of hard. It can also be hard if you're in production for like a long time. So if you're working in production for, let's say, 3 to 7 years and then want to switch over to art, sometimes that's more difficult because everyone knows you as the production person. So if you say, I want to go into art, their question might be, but why? You're so good at production. So I say all that to say that it's not wrong and it's not bad to come in as a production person. I came in as a production person, and I made the jump and it took a couple of years, but I did it and I know other people have done it. Just know that you may have to do extra work as opposed to someone who says, I'm only going to apply for art jobs. I'm not going to do anything within the industry that is not art. So it's just something to keep in mind.
This person asked, can we also add Discord servers of official organizations if we're not official members of that organization, like Women in Animation?
So it depends. So the reason we don't have them there is every organization has their own rules for how you join their organizations. So a couple of them, you have to be that specific group to join, but then others, they give out the Discord links once you contact them directly. So what you'll want to do is just Google like if you Google animation groups, if you Google women in animation, Asians in animation, Black and animated, Latinx and animation. If you Google these folks, if you look for them on Instagram, they will have instructions on their websites for, how to join. And then once you've joined, they will send you the Discord. So that's the only reason why we're not putting in the chat, not because we don't want to, but they have specific rules and we want to abide by their rules since they're a separate organization from VLA.
Yeah, and I would recommend also, in the case where an official membership is available, try and secure yourself that official membership so you can point to it. Versus if you are on a Discord server with friends and it is informal, it's okay to say, for instance, you participate in or moderate a Facebook writers group. Sure, you can do that. But if there is an official organization like WIA that everybody knows, you should show that you have membership with it because it shows you're serious about it, that you participate in it, and that you can also show, again, official affiliation.
Thank you. So Nikki asks, do y'all have any advice on finding direct contact emails / LinkedIn for recruiters?
Okay, so yeah, a thing that I used to do is I would go on LinkedIn and I would just type, recruiters Disney, recruiters DreamWorks, recruiters fill in the blank for studios, and then see how many there were, and then see if they handled specific types of jobs. Because typically, the larger the studio, the more recruiters they have. And then each of those recruiters is responsible for a different department. And you can do the same thing on Instagram and Blue Sky and other events. A lot of recruiters are on different things. So I would try to find first recruiters at the studio and then see if they're in charge of a specific department and then reach out to that person in a specific department. And then also ask friends, ask professionals, ask teachers, ask other people if they happen to know who the specific person is. And then also, as we said, keep in mind too that sometimes, recruiters are wonderful. So this is not a slam against recruiters. I know a lot of recruiters who are great. Recruiters are not always the people that are hiring for the show. Depending on the executive producer and how long they've worked at the studio, how much clout they have, they might not need the recruiter's help because they've been in it for a long time. So they might say to the recruiter, don't worry, we can find our own people. Because I've worked on shows like that. So just also know that not every recruiter may be able to help with every show, but they can definitely help. And that's why we encourage you to meet as many people as you can, because especially in the terms of writers, recruiters often don't hire writers. The folks that hire writers are the executive producers and the story editors, and the development executives are the ones referring writers to the executive producers. And again, the executive producers are often the showrunners. So if you want to be a writer, those are the folks you typically need to meet. And those jobs are usually not posted at all. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Someone else asked, if you get a job offer, are you allowed to give your current job a 2 weeks notice, or do you need to be prepared to leave your job immediately?
Oh, wow. I've never had
That's
anybody
like
be
that's some good one.
yeah, that's a good one. I've never had anybody go, no, leave us now. You're dead to us. No, it is wonderful professional courtesy to give them 2 weeks notice. Please give your job 2 weeks notice. Please don't pull, if any of you are familiar with Jerry Maguire, please don't pull a Jerry Maguire where you're like, I'm out and I'm also taking the office chair and the goldfish and this printer and like burning the place down. Don't, even if it's a terrible job, don't do that. Give your job as much notice as possible. And when the place hires you, ask them if you can give and sometimes it's a weird situation where they need somebody immediately. If they need somebody immediately, they need somebody immediately. But if they don't, just say, hey, I would love to work with you. I would love to give my former employer at least 2 weeks notice. Can you accommodate that? Most people, unless there's something going on that show, will be able to say, yes, that's fine. So when you can give 2 weeks, if you can give more, especially if this is for later on, but if you're an artist, try to give more than 2 weeks because usually for art, especially, it can take longer than 2 weeks to find your replacement. So try to, give your former employer as much time as you can.
Yeah, and ideally let them know as soon as you can.
Mhm.
Hopefully you will have accepted a job offer. So just make sure you have that said, because as long as it's in a contract, in writing, and you signed it, okay, it's real now.
Mhm.
But as soon as you've done those steps, let your former employer know that you will be leaving them because you want to make sure that you are giving ample notice, even if for whatever any reason you have to give less than 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, are you able to stay, or do you want to say bye?
No, I can do them. You want me to do the next one?
If you want, yeah,
Okay.
sure, go
So,
ahead.
I can do one more
um,
question because I have an out in a bit.
Okay, thank
okay,
you.
well, this is a good one. I like this one. They said, as someone with social anxiety, do you have any tips for networking without seeming cringe, especially if you're only aspiring and have the opportunity to talk to an industry professional?
I love this question. I love this so much. Yeah, because man, talking to strangers is hard. It's yeah, so I get it.
Angela,
It's
that should
like,
be our next A squared presentation,
yeah,
networking
how
for
to not
shy
be
people.
cringe when talking to people. Yeah, okay. So first I just want to say, we hear you. We hear you. It is terrifying, because it's like, oh my gosh, here is a person that's been working for years and years, and I love their show, and I'm gonna go and speak to them, and I don't want to look like a goober. How do I do it? First thing I want you to do is just take a real, and this is nothing even to do with talking. Just take a deep breath and know that just because people are professionals, they're people. They're people just like you. They were once you. A lot of professionals are also very nervous about talking to people and also don't particularly enjoy networking. So know that you might be on more of a similar plane than you think. So something that I used to do when I would go to mixers is I would say, okay, my goal is I'm going to talk to 3 people I don't know. I'm going to, say hello, introduce myself, ask them about them. If I didn't know them at all or what they did at all, I would ask them, oh, it's really nice to meet you. Why did you decide to come to this event? Are you a big fan of the studio? Like, what do you like to do? What are your goals? What are your hobbies? Having a genuine interest in the other person is always a plus because then you're not thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about your nerves. You're not worrying about how do I sound? What am I doing? You're just showing genuine interest and appreciation for the person in front of you. And then if it's somebody that you do know who they are and you do know what they like, it's fine to say, hey, I really liked X, Y, and Z film that you did. Here's what I liked about it. And then they'll probably say something like, oh, thank you. And then you can ask, how did you come up with the concept for this? How did you decide to do this? What was the hardest part of your project? And a good thing to do is write down, like if you're going somewhere and you know who's going to be there, or even if you don't, write down a couple of questions that you're genuinely wondering about that you couldn't find on Google and just practice that a little bit and then go to these events and ask that. And you don't have to talk with the person for, 10, 15, 30 minutes. 2 to 5 minutes is fine. Ask them a couple of interesting things that you're genuinely curious about. And if you feel like you have a good rapport, you can ask them, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for chatting with me. you know, can we talk again? Would it be okay if, we had coffee and talked some more? Or if I contacted you on Zoom, is that okay with you? And if they say, sure, get their contact info that night or the next morning, email them, try to set up a day and time, and then you can go from there. But I think the best thing is to just go in relaxed and also go in with zero expectation for getting a job. Just think of it as I'm going to meet a cool person who does a cool thing, and then I'll know someone who's cool, and we can continue talking. And if we get along, we can talk some more. And if we don't get along, no harm, no foul. I'll just go talk to someone else. So that's how I would approach it. Angela, do you have anything you want to
Yeah,
add, or like how you
I
like
mean,
to
a plus,
approach people?
yeah, definitely and a plus one that people can smell when someone's being transactional.
Hmm.
So going in with like, I'm gonna get a jobby job. I'm coming for you, right? Don't be the weird deer from Adventure Time where you do the little finger thingy. Okay, like just go ahead and focus on I want to meet some cool people. Hi. And if you are the person who also struggles with breaking the ice, because I know what it's like to also be on low social battery. You go into a mixer, there's like 500 people there, and they're all talking to each other, and they're all in groups, and oh my God, you know no one. My rule of thumb for just navigating those spaces and helping myself get into that, okay, I can talk to people mode. When you enter into a space and you see all the folks around, look for folks first that if you know them, like you notice a friend or someone, it's okay. I'm giving you permission. It's okay to first start out with talking to someone you do know or even know just as a coworker. Do not spend the entire night with that person. Start out with a familiar face, build up your chatty battery, and then after about 5 minutes, 10 at most, go ahead and move on to someone you don't know. It'll help you build up just a little bit of that. Oh, I've arrived. I got to chat with a friend. Cool, I'm moving on. And if you recognize absolutely no one, you are odd man out, look for the shy people. Chances are you will notice at least one person with a little drink in their hand looking around like this who also doesn't know anyone. And you can go over to them and go, "Hi, nice to meet you. My name is so and so. What brought you here?" And that way you don't have to say like, "What do you do? Are you a
Yeah.
writer like me? Are you a
Yeah.
board? Will you draw my things?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you can start out with something very simple, just like, "What brought you here?" It's neutral. And they might share that they're a writer and that's why they're at this WGA mixer or whatever. Or they might share that, a friend told them to come out here tonight. Cool. And then you can just keep going from there. My other rule of thumb is sometimes it's hard to spot shy people or you're not sure who's shy. It's okay to look for folks who also have other marginalized identities because oftentimes these are the folks who sometimes feel left out of a clique or they feel shy or they feel nervous about being in a space where they're not sure if they belong or not. So if you are in a space and you notice that there aren't that many people of color, it's okay to go up to someone and say hi because chances are they might feel nervous too. This is something that I usually share with POC groups like VLA because it is important to recognize that and folks appreciate that kind of just support and understanding that the industry isn't always friendly to POC or other types of marginal identities, including queer identities. So it's okay to also start from a point of solidarity and empathy and just going up to a total stranger and going, "Hey, what brought you here today?" That's it. That's the only place where you got to start. And it's an easy way to break the ice and then move on to another person as well.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you, guys.
Do you have to go, Angela Sanchez? We have 3 more questions. I don't know if Entzminger.
You have 3 more questions? All right, let's squeeze them in.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I could do the next one. I'm trying to break into the industry after working an office job. How many mentorships should I put on the resume to be considered in my field of interest?
Well, I mean, how many do you have? Put all of them. I mean, there's no one's going to not hire you because you had too many mentorships. Mentorships are great. So I would say if, all of them are relevant, you could put all of them. Now, if you have 18 and now you have a page and a half resume, maybe don't do that. But, put the ones that are most relevant to the type of job that you're looking for. So if you were, if you had a mentorship with, let's say, Lexia and Women in Animation or WGA or Rise Up Animation or whatnot, I think it's great. I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Go sign that. Next question.
Do you have volunteer positions, like some sort of document showing available roles?
Oh, are they asking
That sounds like a
VLA or are
VLA
they?
question.
Yeah, is that a VLA question or is that a question for us?
I think that is a VLA question. Sorry, I read it fast because I know we're on a rush.
I
Yeah.
can do the next one because it's like the story of my life.
Okay.
Someone wrote, if I am
I
changing careers from art teaching, well, I was an art teacher, but art teaching to storyboarding, should I mention or explain the career change in my cover letter? Thank you.
Yeah, you can. I have a friend that's what she did. Like she
Mhm.
was an art teacher and then she became a storyboard revisionist. So I would say you don't even necessarily have to explain it. I would go more the tract of, I love art so much that I wanted to teach it to other people. So I have taught, X, Y, and Z art to these students, and it's wonderful. And I want to further my career by working in the animation industry. So you don't even have to explain the switch. I would just very boldly state, I know how to teach, and I know how to teach art because I am an artist. Like a lot of people have come from like an art education background. So I
And I
think that
know
would
how
be
to
great.
classroom manage and explain
Yes.
things to other people. That's a big
Yes.
one. That's a superpower.
Yeah, it's great because, not everyone in animation has the best communication skills. So being able to say, I know how to communicate with artists, that is a big plus.
And if you have like this is something I've been wondering, if you have a completely different career from that, like, do you explain in the cover letter? Because sometimes I feel like, oh, I need to say I was a lawyer or something, but I don't know if I even need to say it or like
I
what.
worked in the philanthropic sector for what, like 6 years, and then 8 in education overall. Um, at this point, because I've built enough career experience in animation, I wouldn't mention it now. But when I was starting out, I mentioned it as my past experience was this. And again, relevant points. I managed a budget. I was able to communicate across multiple different different collaboration networks, across multidisciplinary colleagues. I was able to coordinate across partners and colleagues who are outside of my organization. And also, in other cases, I mentioned about like distilling information and heady reports into briefings that can be understood by the average person who did not work in my specialty. So basically pulling out the main skill sets that are relevant and saying I'm a good communicator. I can suss out what the intent or the focus is of a lot of material, and I know how to meet a deadline and organize different moving pieces.
Wow, that was so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like it's okay. And I like for my cover letter at near after I explain like this is the job I'm interested in, relevant experience, and relevant experience would be like writing accolades or whatever. At the bottom, I would have like one line that says my past career was in blah blah blah. So I also bring these bullet skills, and all the skills were in bold with a little tiny like logline definition next to them. So it was very like one little chunk of a paragraph, 4 bullets that were included in that chunk, 2 sentences about the relevant past experience. That's it. So did not take up paragraph space on my cover letter. Just made sure this is the one section. So if you see this on my resume, this is what I did. Bullet, bullet, bullet. Those are the 3 or 4 main skills I bring.
Yes, thank you so much. Those are all the questions we have for tonight. So thank you all for coming, and thank you both Angelas. Can't wait for part 3.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
should do the networking for Shy Guys.
Yeah, I do want to point out because someone in the chat, I think your name is Kayara. Please forgive me if I've mispronounced your name. I mean no disrespect. You put in something really good that I want to make sure that everybody hears, which is that they practiced by going to a networking event at least once a week or bi-weekly, and that they hated socializing, but it became easier and later fun as they kept doing it. And that's a really big takeaway, is that it might not get easier, but you'll get better at it the more that you do it, because it is a muscle. So, whether you're outgoing or not outgoing, introverted or shy or what have you, the more you practice, the better you can get. So if you can make it, like a fun or creative challenge for yourself of, once a week, I'm going to go to an event, or every month I'm going to go to an event, or I'm going to practice by, I'll take an acting class, I'll take an improv class, I'll join Toastmasters, I'll do something that gets me to talk to people I wouldn't normally talk to. That'll really help you. Because what I, said earlier about animation, it's not that people are bad at communication because they're bad people. It's that a lot of times, because we're artists, what did we spend most of our time doing as children? Drawing. We spent most of our time drawing or most of our time writing. So sometimes we weren't always the kids that were out talking to everybody. Sometimes we were, sometimes we weren't. So we got really good at, animation or some type of art or writing, but maybe not as great at socializing because we were spending our time doing this other thing, which is okay. But now that we're wanting to get into the industry, we can develop that skill. And it is a skill. It's not like you're born with being able to talk or you're not. So you can get better at it. It might take time, and that's okay. I just wanted to let everybody know it is okay, and it takes time, and sometimes it's scary, and that's okay.
But you will get better at it the more that you do.
Yes. The more you do it, the better you'll get.
Well, that'll be a future workshop, I'm sure. Thank you, even just for doing that. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's it for tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Eric, Giselle, Nikki, and both Angelas for coming and helping out as always. And yeah, thank you. We got a whole new bunch of members on the Discord now. So thank you guys for shouting it out a
Yay!
million times.
Yay.
That was
That's
so
great.
nice of you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
See you next time.
All right.
See
Bye,
you next
everyone.
time.